Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I'm not James Clark. I'm Al Krishnasamy, usually here on Mondays. Coming up, we have special guest Charlotte Davies. It's Wednesday morning. This is Teachers Talk Radio, and we are live.
Live from Bournemouth, this is The Breakfast Show with Mal Krishnasamy on Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live on the Podbean app or desktop player. Just head over to www.podbean.com/LSW/TT Radio or search Teachers Talk Radio.
Morning. Welcome to the show. It's Wednesday, it's Bastille Day, 14th of July. It's Hump Day, and for some of you, you're almost there. Just a couple of days, but I know my kids are still in school till next week, Friday. Just hanging on. I really don't know why the government didn't just say, just last 2 weeks of school, just take it off. Teachers need the break. The numbers are going up. So, why not just take the last 2 weeks off? So then the kids have an extended 8-week holiday. But then I suppose that's easy for me to say because I can have the kids at home because I work from home. But then there's lots of people that need to sort out childcare during that time. I don't know. It just worries me with the numbers going it doesn't sound like many people are talking about it, but the numbers are really high, people. Don't want to scare you or anything, but yeah, it's not great. So what are we talking about today? We've got Charlotte Davies coming in. I think she's already in the studio. There, can't speak. Studio. Yes, she is. Hello. Morning. She'll be coming in for 7:30 to talk to us roughly around 7:30. If I get fed up of my own voice, she might be coming in earlier. We're going to be talking about motor skills. Now, I've talked about this before with absolutely no research, just my own opinions, and the fact that I have 2 little boys. And I've talked about how, well, should they really be starting proper school that early, and should they really be trying to get little kids to be trying to write before the age of 7? Do they really have the motor skills? So we're going to talk to an expert to see if my concerns are, valid or not, or is it just my kids? So we'll be discussing that. And the interesting thing about Charlotte is that she's been lobbying for a proper national curriculum in PE that would support the kinetic chain of children's development. Can you tell that I don't know what that means? I will be asking. We've got hello. I'm really sorry. We'll get this. Well, I always get names wrong this time in the morning. So Habirora Naftar from Rwanda. Welcome. Happy for you to be here. So, so Charlotte Davey in soon. As usual, we've got the news, we've got words from our sponsors, and I'm going to also be discussing, I've done a bit of research. I know. I've done a bit of research on why are Scandinavian countries considered to have the best education. So I've been looking at a range of different things about Scandinavian countries. So roughly about 8 o'clock, I'll be discussing that. Now, before that, Oh, thought I didn't have my phone then. Before that, I'm going to be discussing the latest headlines. Now, maybe I need a little jingle for this. But it's probably one of those death and doom and gloom ones. That's my opinion, I should say. Yes, so what have we got? Oh, okay. I'll take it all back. Right, I'm going to do that one last. I'm going to do the Daily Mirror last because that's beautiful. Okay, we've got the Metro, up your game, and you've got Twitter, Insta, Facebook, TikTok. I'm not sure what that little ghost is. Snapchat. This is how old I am, people. Snapchat. Right. The Prime Minister demands social media firms do more against racist trolls. Are they going to ban him then? A picture of dozens of people gathered at an anti-racism demonstration by a mural of Rashford, which was defaced after the final, is splashed across the front page of the Metro. The paper says the Prime Minister has warned social media firms to up their game and stop online racism after the abuse. Okay, so and the red eye backs this up as well. Monkey emoji. Oh no, it doesn't back it up. It says the opposite. Monkey emojis okay to send to black players, says Instagram. It, it doesn't say that, does it? The Eye reports on Instagram statement that messages sent to Rashford, Bukayo, Saka, and Sancho with monkey and banana emojis didn't go against our community guidelines. What did a robot send that? The paper concludes that the platform sees them as okay. Well, now, if ever there's an advert for the lack of diversity in an organization, there it is, and what the consequences of them are. Because if they think that that's okay, there's something seriously wrong there. Okay, the Sun. Do you know what? So I detest the Sun. I didn't really like it before Hillsborough, but yeah, I really thought that the Sun was like no longer existed, but it still exists. But Wembley Stampede crushed my dad's ribs. This is Harry Maguire says about his dad. For those that don't know, Harry Maguire is an England defender. The Times, they've got a cute picture of somebody next to a mini headline that says, "Women are the biggest trolls," claims influencer. Who is this influencer? M. Sheldon, who has more than 117,000 followers. Okay, so anyway, the main headline is the Met Police Commissioner, Dame Cressida Dick, wants to seek a new term after her contract expires in April. Yeah, I'm pretty sure if it was up to the public, she wouldn't be coming back. That is despite criticism over security failures at Wembley and a string of other controversies, it adds. Now, I have to say, I could only go on the evidence. And if we have a look, and the rest of the world was watching us, as we had hundreds of mostly men in Leicester Square. Not that gender comes into it, but in Leicester Square, and London's my hometown, and just tearing up tearing up the city. And now these weren't even foreign fans; these were our fans, England fans. And Leicester Square is in our capital city in England, and they were destroying the place. Windows were being broken, furniture being broken up, stuff being thrown over. If you'd seen a picture of Leicester Square, honestly, it was disgusting. It was heartbreaking. And these are our fans. And Boris Johnson wants England to host the World Cup. Veek this morning. I went to bed early as well. Yeah, just put a message in the comments saying where you're listening from. I know we've got one person from Rwanda. Our tech manager, Nicola, where are you actually listening in from? Nikki, there you go. Just as I said it, read my mind. From Birmingham. Fantastic. Anyone else? Let us know. I know we've got Tom, Rogers History, our great leader. He's in the house. Where are you? Warrington? Why do I think that? No, that might be Kyle. Liverpool. I don't know. Let us know where you're listening in from. You're probably driving, so you probably can't. Yeah, but do message in. Right, headlines. Back to the headlines. What else is going on? Right, The Guardian. Outrage as number 10 slashes foreign aid budget and amid fears for world's poor. Now, okay, I'll read the rest of it before I go into one. There has been outrage after the government won a Commons vote to lock in cuts to spending on overseas aid. According to The Guardian, oh no, this is why I wouldn't make a newsreader. According to The Guardian, the paper says Downing Street has been accused of putting tens of thousands of lives at risk. It quotes former Prime Minister Sir John Major saying the move showed the stamp of Little England, not Great Britain. Actually, that kind of links to the weekend as well. I was talking to a head teacher yesterday, who's a friend of mine, and I work with him, and yeah, we were talking about Little England and how this weekend really showed Little England at its worst. And it kind of feels like a broken society. And England just feels like it's getting smaller and smaller. I don't know what you think, those of you listening in. What are your thoughts? Do you feel that? Because it does feel that way to me with Brexit, with the government and the things that they say about foreigners, about immigrants, about what they say about asylum seekers, some of the most needy in the world. We had Safet Vakulic on last week, a Bosnian refugee. He came to this country as a refugee, and he said nobody leaves their country as an asylum seeker because they want to. He didn't want to leave. He had to leave for his and his family's safety. Yeah, so for me, it feels like the England's mentality seems to get all the rhetoric, all the headlines, all the stuff the politicians that are in charge are talking about is making us even smaller. And the world is looking at us. I've got friends in America, Australia, and every now and then they'll text me and go, "What is going on over there?" You know, Britain used to have this reputation as being great, actually. It's what put the great in Great Britain, we'd say. But like now, it's like, what happened to cool Britannia? Because what I saw this weekend was not cool. It was, those of you not in England, not in Britain, what you must have seen the headlines. I mean, that's probably quite UK centric of me to say, but those of you listening in, if you'd seen the headlines about England, about the English fans, what were your thoughts? Did you think, oh, typical, nothing's changed over there then? Or did you think, oh, that's pretty shocking from a country of law and order and justice? It'd be interesting to hear other people's view. I know friends, like I said, friends of mine have contacted me going, oh, God, is everything all right over there? Because what we hear is pretty shocking. Okay, the Daily Telegraph. UK travellers with Indian AstraZeneca vaccine are barred from holidays. How will they know if it's Indian? The Daily Telegraph reports that British holidaymakers are being barred from boarding flights to Europe after receiving the Indian-made version of the AstraZeneca vaccine. It features an interview with a couple who were turned away. They tried to book when they tried to board a flight to Malta. We were just gutted, they tell the paper. Now, that's one of the best English phrases out there, isn't it? Gutted. It just says it all, really. I don't know how they know that. Would they? I mean, how quickly do they check the batches? How? I'm going to have to read this properly. Yeah, I don't know how they, because I had AstraZeneca. Both of my vaccines are AstraZeneca, but I don't know where it came from. I've no idea. Okay, the Daily Mail. Oh, there's a surprise. They've got some royals on the front page. At last, justice for our troops. Soldiers will not be prosecuted over historic crimes in Ulster, but there's a price. IRA terrorists are off the hook. The Daily Mail reports that Northern Ireland Secretary Brandon Lewis will announce a planned statute of limitations that will cover all incidents during the Troubles. The paper says it means veterans who served in Northern Ireland are finally set to be freed from the threat of prosecution. Don't know how I feel about that. Because some of my family are Irish, my other half's Irish, not Northern, but still, crimes are crimes, aren't they? Certain things you think, okay, they were soldiers, they did what they had to do, but then there are other things where you're like, well, that's just a total atrocity. I don't know. It's quite a difficult one, isn't it? I think I don't know what your thoughts. Right, Megan says you have the number on your vaccination card. So they must have at the airport. They must have a series of numbers they know that they must type in and say, "Oh, that was made in India." I mean, how do we find out? That's what I want to know. Thanks, Megan. Financial. Oh no, hang on. There was a subheading somewhere that I wanted to read. Yes, right. Race. This is in the Daily Telegraph. Subheading: Racism is systemic in England. A think tank report tells the UN. Now, for those that don't know, a few months ago, under much outrage, and I have to say I couldn't speak when I saw the report and the things that were said in it, a report came out, which was basically by the government, for the government, speaking on behalf of the government, saying that there is no systemic racism in this country. And this caused a huge amount of uproar across the UK, particularly from those of us who've experienced it. And we're not just talking, walking down the street and somebody calls you an awful name. Many of us have experienced that. But we're talking systemic, as in within the police force, within the NHS, within all kinds of huge organisations, and little organisations. That there is systemic racism, and this report basically said there isn't. Now we've got a think tank that says there is. Let's have a little read of this. England is systemically racist, according to a report submitted to the UN by a prominent government critic and think tank chief executive who called Boris Johnson a brat. Okay. The findings were disclosed after racist abuse was directed at black football players following England's defeat in the Euro 2020 final on Sunday. A coalition of more than 100 civil society organisations and NGOs, coordinated by the race equality think tank, the Runnymede Trust, have warned that the government's approach to tackling racism risks breaking international human rights laws. Okay, and that report was funded by the Equality and Human Rights Commission. They said the government is in breach of a UN treaty aimed at eradicating racial discrimination. How comes that's a subheading? That should be huge. That's quite huge. The think tank's chief executive, Halima Begum, criticised the Prime Minister as an entitled Bullingdon Club brat. More than a dozen Tory MPs later wrote to the Charity Commission demanding an investigation into the trust, claiming its criticisms were made in bad faith. Well, yeah, you have to wonder about the bias of that, but it sounds pretty accurate there. Okay, Daily Express. Witch hunts hounded veterans to end. There's more about veterans and soaring Financial Times. Soaring US inflation challenges Fed view of temporary high prices. So I was going to go back to the first one, Daily Mail. There's a picture of Marcus Rashford. Now, Marcus Rashford, he wrote this beautiful thing the other day where he basically apologised, and Grealish did as well, and a couple of others. That a number of the English football players wrote apologies for missing penalties or not bringing back the cup, and it's just, why are they apologising? They should not be apologising. They did us proud. They're an inspiration on and off the pitch. And Marcus Rashford, they've been getting a huge amount of abuse, which you kind of think these players, these fans who were there roaring on support all the way up to Sunday, were like, these guys like Sterling and Rashford and so on, they're all heroes. And then as soon as the final whistle blows, the monkey chants, the racist abuse, the vile things that I've seen on Twitter, which I hope to never see again since the 70s. I mean, it's absolutely shocking. And then you put it into the context of that these football players are like, I mean, is it Saka? Saka's only 19. You know, I mean, there are kids at school in year 13 that are 19. You know, you just like, oh my goodness, 19 years old, and the abuse that he's getting. And they're all lovely people. And the amount they've put into this country, I mean, there was a statistic a few months ago that said Marcus Rashford earned about 16 million last year, but put into charity or put out into organizations about 24 million. He put out more than he earned last year. I mean, that no other person has done that in this country, and the abuse he's getting, and because of him, you know, loads of children were able to eat last summer because of the campaigns he put in place. So the headline is "You Inspire Us: Kids' Letters to Defend Lions Against Vile Racist Abuse." And there's a handwritten note from a 9-year-old expressing her support for England star Marcus Rashford. And it says, don't forget that you are brave and courageous, not only for playing superbly, but for stepping up. Absolutely. Oh, God, that's made me get a bit wobbly. Lower lips going there. I mean, isn't that lovely? I mean, this is a mural that got defaced in, I think it's Whittington or something like that. Witherton. I don't know, I've probably got that completely wrong. But it's where Marcus Rashford is from. And before you knew it, there was a couple of post-it notes, England flags, little messages, and the entire mural is covered in these wonderful messages of support for Marcus Rashford, and well deserved too. And what's interesting about the Daily Mirror is at the top it says "United Against Euro Thugs." Absolutely. They're and I have to say, you know, they're an absolute embarrassment. Coming up, we've got Charlotte Davies. She'll be ringing in about 1 minute, and we'll be talking to her after the news.
This is Teachers Talk Radio. And this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
This is your latest Teacher Talk Radio News with Gail Glenn. Jeff Barton, General Secretary of the Association of School and College Leaders, has expressed concerns over the pressure being placed on teachers by some families who are anxious to ensure their child secures grades required for university. He has told MPs that the union is offering legal advice to members on how to cope with parents who say they have a lawyer ready to challenge any grade which they do not agree with. Kevin Courtney, Joint General Secretary of the National Education Union, has voiced concerns about huge workload implications for staff over the summer. Students will find out next month what grades they have been awarded. The Department for Education has released figures which show that almost 1.5 million students were absent from school in England last week. The figures indicate that 840,000 were absent for COVID-related reasons and 630,000 were absent for other reasons. Kevin Courtney, Joint General Secretary of the National Education Union, told the Commons Education Select Committee that some students absent for non-COVID reasons would be suffering from mental health issues. Nick Brooke, Deputy General Secretary of the Association of Head Teachers, said that the attendance figures made for grim reading and showed that the DFE had lost control of the situation. A Year 4 class from Castle Park School in Caldicot are walking or running the entire length of the Wales Coastal Path virtually. Pupils are uploading their mileage into the website endtoend.run. At the end of the 870 miles of the coastal path, pupils will receive a collective medal as well as an individual certificate. To help the environment, pupils have asked for a tree to be planted rather than receiving the usual t-shirt. This has been your latest Teacher Talk Radio News.
Every teacher loves stationery, right? Imagine getting a selection of fun, beautiful and unique stationery items designed and selected especially for teachers, delivered through your door every month. You need to check out teacherslovestationery.club.
I'm always so excited when the box arrives. It's such a treat.
My Teachers Love Stationery Club box is just a little treat to myself every month.
It's always full of delightful and surprising items, including some really good quality stationery brands like Faber-Castell and Stabilo.
And because you never know what you're going to get, it makes it even more fun and special when you get it.
It feels really great to be supporting a family business that's run by real teachers. I can't help feeling like they just know what I'm going to enjoy using stationery-wise better than I do myself.
Visit teacherslovestationery.club and enter the code TTRadio when you buy your first stationery box to save £2 today. teacherslovestationery.club.
Welcome back. So, I'd like to welcome Charlotte Davies. Hi. Welcome to the show. How are you? Yes, thank you for coming on so quickly. Because the reason why was because there was a Twitter chat about people's motor skills and when they should go to school and things like that. And it's something that I talk about all the time with absolutely no research behind me. Only the fact that I have my own children and from what I see of them. So when I saw that you were a bit of an expert or quite a bit of an expert, I thought, yes, let's get you in to get you to talk about your thoughts on this. So give us a rundown of your educational background. Mm.
Forced me to work out how to sort out his problems, reopen the pathways from eye to brain, and understand how his motor skills worked. And in doing so, I then started taking all his friends with ADHD, dyslexia, and so on to the same therapist. Wheel forward several years, I set up a social enterprise to sort out children's developmental problems, sort out why they were having learning difficulties, because I realized nearly all of it went back to motor skills, sound processing, and visual processing. And we simply don't check basic children's development in Britain. And I'm now in business with the person who sorted my son out. So he was eye patched from 3 to 6 years old. And I had no idea that there had been extensive experiments with kittens that would have shown that. So you do not eye patch children. I cannot say too strongly. What we need to do is strengthen the muscles around children's eyes. We need to get the eye to brain link. And what I found was that the medical profession work in such silos of knowledge that the optometrist working with my son didn't know his eyes were connected to his brain and how that worked. Dreadful. Yes, and that is a national problem. So I'm currently working with a group of adults, don't understand why they're having problems professionally, and it goes back to the binocular vision. So it is really, really important. And the first 7 years of a child's life are really important. So we know that from all the research underlying occupational therapy, from early education research, we know that children come together in those first 7 years. But we've, in the UK, become obsessed by a rush to 4, which disrupts everything. And it seems like a great idea to get the children reading and writing, because people are obsessing about reading and writing. But actually, what we need to do is get the foundations. It's a bit like obsessing about getting the roof on a house. Yeah, the roof's going to stop the rain coming in, but if the foundations aren't there, the whole thing's going to fall down anyway. And we're not putting in the foundations. Yes. Yes. So you haven't got your postural control in place properly until 7. You haven't got a thing called your bilateral integration of motor skills. You can't work fluidly across left to right. Your left and right don't work fluidly together until 6, 7 years of age. And we have no PE curriculum that checks every day that those are developing properly. So we need to check that children have got full conscious control of their muscles. They can really work with them properly, and that they have got really, they can really move across their midline. They can do things like throw a ball from left to right, and they can work with opposite arm and leg. And it seems very simple, but if those things are not in place, what happens is, for instance, if you can't move from left to right, your eyes also don't. So they jump at the midline. Does that make sense? Also, what you get is clamping up of the neck and jaws and shoulders because you struggle so much to go across the midline, and that tightens up the area around your neck and um, jaw, etc., which makes it difficult for you to make sense of sound. So, in order for a human to hear the full range of sound, they need a really good upright posture. In order for a human to develop the proper binocular vision, they need to be very upright. There needs to be a platform of a very good framework so that the eyes can work properly. And then at 6, 7, 8, what happens is we integrate sound, vision, motor skills. So when we remove our eyes across text, we ought to be really immersed in the story. We ought to be on the boat with swallows and Amazons, feeling the water, feeling the wind. We ought to be really feeling like we're one of the team. And yet, actually, what I see is we've got a nation of children who decode. They've been put into reading too young. They lean off to one side, so they only work with one eye. When you work with one eye, you can't create visual pictures in your mind's eye. And their sound processing isn't that good. You can hear it in their speech. And so they come along, they can tick a box that they can read at 200 words a minute. You ask them questions about what they've read, and they really have very little idea. Or there are intermittent gaps. And when we screen them, we can see their eyes jumping. So we have equipment called a visograph where we can track a person's eye movements as they read. As they read numbers, so we can see if the eyes have basic good mechanics. We can see when they read for meaning, when they read a story, and there can often be very big differences between the two because they can't bring sound, vision, and motor skills together. Does that make sense? That we're not checking. That's right. We have to look at the biomechanical science, and in this country, our education department is willfully ignoring it. I mean, really willfully. It's been brought to their attention by multiple people, and yet they keep going on that no, everything is phonics. And the latest report they've produced is really dreadfully damaging for children because they tell the teachers that everything is solved by more and more phonics. It is not. You need to check. Can these children sit upright? Can they move their eyes from left to right? Can they focus in the near range? And they can't. Humans do not focus in the near range until 7. So we're asking them at 4 to focus close to for often extended periods. So that report talked about children doing phonics for an hour a day by the end of reception. That's a heck of a long time for a little animal whose natural focusing point is 20 feet away to be focusing very close to. So that they're going to be forced to work with just one eye because they don't have two eyes working together by 4. It is the educational equivalent of putting a child in the carpet factory. And we look at third world countries where infants are going to work in carpet factories and think it's horrible. We're doing the same to our children, but in education. And we're bullying teachers into complying by micromanaging them. Painful. It's It is physically painful. Yes. Yes, when we sort out teenagers with learning difficulties, when the penny drops that they're not bad, that they are not stupid, and that actually had somebody supported their basic development, they would have gone through school successfully and very happily. They are often very, very angry because then they realize what they've been through and just how awful the system has been to them. And well, most other countries don't put their children in school at 4. They think that's insane. So you highlight in your intro blog that the Scandinavian countries are doing better. So yes, they do better because their children don't go into school till later. They've got a much better understanding of basic biomechanics. So they there's a school of thought, the primitive reflex school, where you really check children got full conscious control of their motor skills, and they do a lot more checking of that in Scandinavia. But I can still see from the photographs children are still going forward with retained reflexes because they haven't got an understanding of how motor skills, sound and vision fit together. But that's coming. Slovenia are very good. They have an app which links the parents, the doctor, the PE teacher, and they check their children every year and send a message back to all stakeholders. But they also have a really good PE program. But again, that PE program doesn't check all the primitive reflexes and it doesn't link into sound and vision. But there are bits and pieces out there that are done far better by other countries. And lots of other countries have long-term data going right back to World War II on the physical health of their nation. In the UK, really, there are few patches. Sandercock at Essex University has been doing very good work on British children's fitness, and it is a horror show of declining fitness. It is just a downward trend, and he's been crying out for years and getting no responses from government with any serious program or thought. So we could do so much better. Yet, if I had one, yes, yes, I would have daily PE. It would be fun, but it would be daily PE, making sure every single child was going through a program of development where we're checking everything is in place, because that will set them up for life. And that program, yes, it's going to be quite intense in the early years to make sure that by the time they're 7, 8, they're in a good place. But that needs to go on being sustained all the way through, because we know from our experience in schools, we can get children to a good place. But if they're not constantly encouraged, they slide back again because they don't maintain their core strength and things. I would have music education. I would make sure that every child could process sound properly, and that we would be doing lots of reciting of rhymes, learning of rhymes, lots of clapping so we had a good rhythm. This acquisition of language is really important, because we know from our work that if a child can't process the language orally, i.e. through their ears, they can't then read it properly. Their eyes dysregulate. So you have to understand the sounds of the language and be able to reproduce them in order to be able to then visually process them. And we don't develop that stage at all in this country. So we need really to spend 3 years building language skills, building music skills, so we can differentiate pitch, we can hold a rhythm, we have tremendous language skills, and that's very easy to do. We've been in rundown schools, you know, where the community is very deprived, massively boosted the children's language by doing clapping games and memorizing long poems, and the children can do it. And once they can do one, they can do any number, and that really boosts ultimate literacy. So, and if they've got a problem, I would address it early, and I would address it through effective sound therapy, which it's very difficult to access in this country, though I've now got schools who are offering it themselves. So what sound therapy does is it uses music, to very specialist music that and specialist equipment that agitates the muscles in the inner ear. So it all comes from one therapist in France, Dr. Alfred Tomatis, who worked with opera singers and realized they process sound with their whole body, and that how the body worked with both bone conduction of sound and air was really important. So when you do the therapy, you're agitating both bone conduction of sound and air, and you are shifting from one band of music to another, constantly agitating the brain and alerting it the sound. That makes the little muscles in the inner ear work like they're at a gym. And you do this for, let's say, 14 days. And what you should do is have a much fitter inner ear that works. The inner ear is really important because inside the inner ear is what's called the vestibular system. And that is like a junction box in a human, and it links up sound, vision, motor skills, facial muscles. So when you agitate your inner ear, you're not just improving speech and language, you're also improving balance, you're improving often facial recognition, you're improving the link between sound and vision. So a person can often make quite big global jumps. So agitating sound processing and getting a person so they can make the full sense of the full range of sound is really important for humans' global development. Yes, we simply don't try. So, you know, when I was having problems with my son, people were suggesting I ought to be thinking about autism. I luckily had enough wit to know that it wasn't a problem with mental health, whatever. It was a problem with biomechanics. Most issues that children are facing are to do with biomechanics. Get the biomechanics right, it's so much easier to go through life. Whereas, like the businessman I was talking to you before, if your eyes constantly jump, but no one's ever shown you that, and they're not jumping when you're looking around the world, it's when you are trying to combine all your senses to do a complex task like an IQ test. You, you don't know why you get emotionally disturbed every time you look at an IQ test. But when someone breaks it down and shows you which bits are not quite working, you then get those sorted. And then my experience is people turn around to me and go, my goodness, if I'd known everybody else going into court, everybody else on stage was experiencing this, then I'd have understood why they could do it calmly and why I was having stage fright or whatever, complete meltdowns. And most of us have something we can't do, we know it. Parallel parking, directions. There'll be something people can't do, and it'll be a little bit of development. And in some people, it's a lot. And it gets very stressful, and you feel stupid. But there are very, very few stupid humans. We are no, seriously. Yes. So why do they get into that state? Why would they find it easier to go into a tribal situation? So when I work with skills problems, they are not bad people, they're lost. And they often hold on to each other and get into gangs because they're touching each other. Their main sense is touch. Because not a lot is going through on the sound and the vision. Life. But I also have no faith in the British government at all because they've got this terrible mindset that anything which is not synthetic phonics isn't the answer to the question. They really cannot process that children need 2 eyes, 2 ears, and left and right sides of their body working properly with the brain in order to learn efficiently. And they're really blocked on it. So I have other projects running. We've got one running in Italy, we've got one running in China. So I have a lot more confidence in my European partners and my Chinese partners to get this, out, documented, etc. And at the same time, I'm working with a university in Britain, Leeds Beckett, and we're going to run projects, and they are at the moment quite blown away by what they're seeing from me. So it's very hard in Britain. Yes, because yes, but we've got a very valuable education system, which is a very big export to Britain, which works on a system where you select and reject. So our top private schools, they select and reject. It's easy. You don't have to be clever. It's not your responsibility to sort the problem or be one of the stakeholders helping sort the problem. Simply, if the kid isn't doing well, you exclude them. And that system is a great export. It looks fantastic. We have all these wonderful uniforms, etc., and historic buildings. And actually, it's a very defective system. And you can see some of the products from that system, far be it from me to suggest in the government, how coping strategies have got people to positions that are way beyond their ability level. And it's been one coping strategy after another, but they're not really well educated. They're not really highly skilled. And that is a really big weakness. And what we really need are people who are really well developed and then really well educated. We're not achieving that. We've got very hooked into coping strategies, tutoring, getting you through the next test. Italy. Well, in Italy at the moment, you would see them working with adults with Down syndrome, and they've been running a project for 12 months. And you would see people who've gone from being very closed down to being much more engaged. Physiologically, you would see them. So imagine the head is at about 90 degrees to the body. It's at completely the wrong angle, and now the head is upright to the body. The eyes can start functioning, the sound processing is functioning, the speech is better. So they're having a much better quality of life, and the community are blown away by what you can do with people with extreme issues. Therefore, they're interested in extending it to a wider range of people. In China, they are running projects with school children, largely getting them fit to learn. So their motor skills, their sound, their vision work, and same sort of, basic thing. So, yep, and it's just a matter of getting it working. There's a school in Ipswich, Castle Hill Primary, where they've running programs with motor skills, sound, vision, and they're very pleased with the results. So